week.
A lot of people were really angry as if I murdered some children.
We thought that this person would be fined pretty good because how much more evidence?
The footage is spectacular, but it also violates a number of safety rules. Why the drone's pilot is not apologizing. Plus,
more green space around my neighborhood. I would welcome it because right now it's just buildings.
we're getting our first look at Union Park, a 4.3 million square foot development that could see a mini rail deck park built north of the Rogers Center. And a close call on the QEW, a truck driver facing charges after barreling down the highway for several kilometers in the wrong direction. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. This drone footage of last week's Raptor celebrations might look spectacular, but if that drone and its 4 rotor blades ever fell from the sky, it could have seriously hurt people below. That's why federal rules prohibit this kind of filming over crowds. But as Chris Glover tells us, the man who posted the videos online thinks those rules are unnecessary.
While Instagram user Toby Gu captured drone footage over the Raptors' victory party in Toronto last week, it's estimated 2 million people were down below.
I have put a drone over larger crowds, and there's never been an issue.
Speaking from Prague, the Toronto-born man admits he isn't licensed or registered, and he thinks new Canadian laws around drones go too far.
And you're basically getting a pilot's license without having to fly an airplane. You need to know how to talk to air traffic control, all this stuff. So my guess as why people are mad is because, they went through all this stuff, they paid all this money, and then some guy, me, just comes in, totally oblivious to all this, flies a drone, gets footage, and then it just blows up on media.
So what would be the safety and security issues with having a drone like this flying over a crowd of 2 million people?
These props are going at a very, very high rate of RPM. If this were to fall and the props are spinning, it could easily take an ear out.
This drone pilot says an accident could cause injury, and drones have the capability of being weaponized.
Anything can be strapped to these, and I don't want to put the ideas or cause fear or fearmonger of us Canadians in this country, but the world has changed.
The drone Gu showed off in his video is not approved in Canada for flight over crowds. Plus, the airspace that day was restricted, and he didn't get required permission.
Under the new regulations, flying a drone where you're not allowed to is punishable for an individual with a fine up to $1,000. For a corporation, a fine up to $5,000. But Transport Canada says it was determined there was not enough evidence to move forward with a full investigation.
To have that kind of response was, again, just a big letdown.
CBC Toronto first broke this story this morning. Late today, Transport Canada says additional information has been brought forward and an investigation has now been opened.
People are going to do it anyways, right? So if you make it easy for them to follow the rules, then they'll follow the rules. But if you make it impossible for them to follow the rules, they're probably just going to break it.
Gu says since posting his videos, the online attacks and fear of fines has grounded him.
I don't think I'm going to do that again. That wasn't worth the stress.
Next time at a Canadian event, he says he'll leave his drone behind. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
We are learning new details tonight about that dramatic police takedown in Scarborough we told you about last night. It ended with the suspect dead and a police officer injured. Now we've learned that suspect was under investigation and police were trying to arrest him when the shooting took place. Police sources also tell CBC Toronto that drugs and a loaded gun were recovered from the man's vehicle. Makta Gabriselassie has the latest.
It was an investigation by the Guns and Gangs unit that ended in gunfire.
I heard just like firecrackers bursting out. But she told, "No, Mom, I think this is shooting."
Residents say it sounded like 3 shots went off and then
sirens going on and on and on and on. So it must have been something bad.
Tina Parada's backyard is on the other side of the fence from where the shooting took place. She went out to investigate.
There was a big commotion with lots and lots of undercover policemen. They had one guy on the ground doing CPR. They had another one handcuffed sitting by the curb. And then one of the officers got hurt on the leg, so he was limping.
Getting down to the bottom of what happened is now the responsibility of the Special Investigations Unit. The spokesperson explains the moments leading up to the shooting.
Officers attempted to stop the vehicle. The vehicle moved forward and struck a police officer. Another police officer then discharged his firearm at the vehicle multiple times. The man was struck. The man was transported to hospital where he was pronounced dead.
The SIU takes over after police-related incidents that involve death, serious injuries, or sexual assault. For Parada, it all hits too close to home.
Bullets, they go around, you don't know who they can hit. So yeah, that was the scary part.
The SIU has not released the identity of the 21-year-old man, but we've been told that the injured officer was treated in hospital and released. Magda Gebrselassie, CBC News, Toronto.
A woman is dead after being hit by a truck this morning. It happened at the intersection of Queen and Victoria, not far from the Eaton Centre. The truck driver remained at the scene. Late this afternoon, police tweeted that they are still trying to identify the woman. A telecom outage in the U.S. is causing headaches for some Porter passengers tonight. The airline issuing a travel alert saying the outage is affecting all areas of its website, including passenger processing and reservations, and that it is unable to make bookings and changes to flights. It says customers should expect delays and disruptions and that they'll be compensated based on their situation. At least 20 flights have been canceled because of the outage. Well, Toronto may be one step closer to getting a rail deck park tonight, but not the massive one being proposed by the city. Instead, a smaller one could be built by developers who want to totally transform a plot of land just north of the Rogers Centre. Taylor Simmons has the details.
It's unassuming now, but this key piece of Front Street West could soon look a lot different. Real estate firm Oxford Properties Group released plans today for a 1.6 hectare, $3.5 billion development.
This is a very central spot in downtown Toronto. We're at the intersection of a residential area to the west, the financial core to the east, the entertainment district to the north, and the sports district to the south. And given all of that, it is a relatively underdeveloped property.
The group held an open house today to show off its ideas. It hopes to build 2 commercial towers and 2 residential, all between 44 and 58 stories. There's plans for an enclosed space it calls a winter garden and a huge green space built over the rail corridor, much like the city's plans for Rail Deck Park, 1 block to the west.
More green space around my neighborhood, I would welcome it because right now it's just buildings.
I'm just worried about, the infrastructure here as well as Union Station. We are not far from there to see what's going to happen because it's an already congested area.
But the developer says the plans include a measure to make it easier for commuters.
We're expanding the path connection from Union Station, the Skywalk, over to Peter Street here, which will be one of the largest path connections in Toronto's history.
The city will soon be studying the plans to ensure the project fits, but
the early indications are that this could be promising.
As for how this will impact Toronto's well-known skyline, Cressy says that's part of the city's considerations.
And so if this proposal was south of the Sky Dome, that would probably be a non-starter.
Nothing is set in stone yet. Oxford Properties plans to submit their rezoning application to the city this summer. From there, it'll take about a year to determine if it should go forward, but if all goes well, they plan to break ground in 2023. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette Kennedy is here with the first look at the forecast. It's going to be a warm day for the final day of the school year.
It certainly is. And, I guess we're trying to find the positives sometimes. So maybe that's what's good, that we didn't have much of a spring or whatever. The kids didn't have to suffer through too much. But tomorrow is going to be a hot and humid one to deal with. So that continues. And in fact, it's building a little bit. We'll look at when we're going to have that next risk of seeing some thunderstorm activity coming back at us. And we'll also a little later in the show be looking through the long weekend forecast. But first of all, just dealing with overnight tonight, a little bit of activity possible from some of the residual stuff towards extreme southwestern Ontario. Otherwise, it's clearer skies and sunshine to set things up. And throughout the day, just a few clouds kind of building into the GTA into the afternoon hours, along with that humidity, perhaps getting a little bit more hazy. It's really not till we get towards Friday that we get into that next chance of seeing those showers and thunderstorms setting up. And as I say, a little later in the show, we'll dive into that. Overnight tonight, though, even the overnight low is running 5 degrees above seasonal, 18 humid, and again tomorrow. So 29 actually feels like 35, Mike.
All right. Thanks a lot, Colette.
You're welcome.
Toronto police are trying to find the man involved in this violent robbery. Today, they put out video of the attack, which happened near Sherbourne and Front 2 weeks ago. As you can see, the suspect goes into a gas station, hops the counter there. He threatens the worker with a knife and demands cash. The clerk is told to lay face down on the floor, and that is when this turns violent.
The suspect emptied the cash drawer of all of the bills and coins, placing the money in his hoodie pockets, and then, unprovoked and entirely without cause, violently stomped on the victim's head 4 times. He is not doing very well, actually. He was unconscious initially and was found by another person who came into the gas station lot later. He was transported to hospital, and he has been released from hospital, but he's in a rehab hospital now, and anticipated to be there for several weeks with some head injuries.
Those injuries include a fractured skull and eye socket. Now, police are hoping that someone will see the surveillance video of the attack and recognize the suspect.
With the beautiful weather here now, visitors are flocking to the Toronto Islands. And now the city wants to create a new plan for what they could be in the years ahead. I'm City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly, and I'll tell you how you can participate in that process coming up.
Some terrifying moments this morning for drivers on the QEW when they encountered a transport truck driving in the wrong direction. Some OPP officers and a fast-acting tow truck driver likely prevented what could have been a deadly situation. Dash cam video shows police in pursuit of the truck, trying to get the driver to stop. Keep in mind, he is traveling westbound in the eastbound lanes. Now, this happened around 3:30 this morning along a 10-kilometer stretch of the QEW from Cawthra to Erin Mills Parkway. Police say it is a miracle there were no collisions. The trucker claims construction along the highway confused him and blames his GPS for sending him the wrong way. Here's what a tow truck driver who helped bring the situation to an end told us.
He would have killed somebody. We had 3 close calls by the time we were chasing him. But finally, thank God, nobody got injured and he stopped.
The truck driver, a 55-year-old man from Quebec, is facing careless driving charges. Well, the Toronto Islands could soon be getting a makeover. The city is developing a new master plan for the parkland to make it a world-class, year-round waterfront destination for residents and visitors. City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly has the details.
I literally won the lottery to be able to live here.
Lindsay Stevens grew up on Ward's Island and moved back 4 years ago so her family could be surrounded by nature.
It's a magical place in that it's quite unique, different from the city, away and yet close enough to get to.
She's looking forward to the city creating a new master plan for her tourist-heavy neighborhood, covering everything from signage to all the possibilities for programs and facilities. And it's not the first time the city has reimagined what the islands can be.
This luxurious chunk of parkland, just yards from downtown Toronto, was once the place to live.
In the early 1900s, there were hundreds more homes and booming businesses, from an amusement park and casino to the Hotel Manitou. Then in 1953, the new Metro Toronto Council pushed for more park space instead of a bustling boardwalk.
Most of those buildings have since been torn down, and this is what the Avenue of the Islands looks like now. A grand boulevard with towering trees and green spaces that bears very little resemblance to what it looked like in the first half of the 20th century.
Modern visitors have plenty of opinions on what should come next.
I think sometimes it's a bit sterile because it's like a lot of grass, a lot of picnic tables, which are good things, but it could use a little bit of variety, a little bit more life.
I understand how it's supposed to be a very environmental place, but maybe putting some not really attractions, but food buildings or just beverages places would just help out a little more, just because it's very limited here.
City officials say public consultations will start later this year.
We're going to get the initial input, and then we'll go back with the different ideas next summer and get input on those, and then we'll finalize the plan. So it'll be about almost a 2-year process to kind of get through it all.
With so many possibilities for changes, Stevens is calling for a balanced approach.
So that we can have environmentally sensitive areas that thrive, and we can have ways of humans safely sort of accessing and experiencing those places.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Nope, we're still not over the Raptors winning the NBA championship, and Choir is keeping the excitement alive with this rousing rendition of We Are the Champions. This is actually from last week at Lee's Palace, but we're just getting a listen tonight. We're still allowed to brag, right? Here's more Choir as we head to break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
The Toronto FC looking to snap an 8-game losing spell tonight, hosting the reigning MLS champs Atlanta United. Manager Greg Vanney coaching his 200th match for the Reds tonight. It all starts with a record. Tsubasa Endo scoring the quickest goal in franchise history, just 28 seconds in when this happened. But then there was a flurry of goals. Atlanta ties the game, eventually takes the lead here before Toronto would tie it again. We have to fast forward to the second of 2 minutes of added time. Alejandro Pizzello with a penalty kick. That wins it. TFC picks up a massive 3 points tonight. Marc Gasol must have really enjoyed his time at the championship parade because he's decided to stick around with the Raptors. Gasol has exercised his player option for next year, worth just over $25 million. Had he not, he would have become a free agent. The Jays with an afternoon game against the Yankees. They get off to a good start. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. hitting a 3-run home run in the top of the first. Now, Danny Jansen would follow that one up in the second with a 2-run homer. The Jays would be up 5-0 at this point. The Yankees, though, would tie it in the fourth. Jays would be trailing by 1 in the ninth. Kevin Biggio with a hardline drive to bring in the tying run here, but this wouldn't last for long. Gleyber Torres chips a soft liner to right to score a walk-off winning run from second in the ninth there. Yankees win today 8-7. Kelly Kennedy's back with their extended forecast. A humid day tomorrow. I want to know what Canada Day is going to be looking like.
Yeah, you and everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll take a look at how the weekend is shaping up, at least how the forecast models are kind of looking at it at this point. And it's pretty encouraging. Friday may be the issue for some of us, especially if that's a travel day for you, right? Just having a look at our record high for this date in history, boy, that's a long-standing one. Comes from the 40s, 1949, 36.1, and the record low, pretty long-standing as well, and it's not really that cool. 5.6 degrees in 1965. Not going to be cool overnight tonight. We're talking about the seasonal temperature being around 13, and we're talking closer to 18 for our overnight lows with the clearer skies that we'll be seeing. Sunshine then, really nice situation with high pressure in place, and we have sun through the day until the afternoon. A few clouds building in. Things looking good towards southwestern Ontario. Any little residual sprinkles there will be moving out as well in the day through southern Ontario. Just hot and humid, so those dew points will be going up a little bit. Now, let's just take you ahead. Thursday night is now looking pretty good. There was a point at which it seemed like this next system would come in and bring in some action maybe as soon as Thursday night. Well, it's getting closer towards Friday that it's still off in the morning, off to the west of us. But then as the day progresses, we get into some showers and thunderstorms, breaking up somewhat, but still kind of coming right on through the shores of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, all the way back into southwestern Ontario before clearing out Friday night into Saturday. Still a little instability Saturday, so a risk of some showers, but I'll show you that 5-day just a moment here. 17 to 18 for the overnight lows for southwestern Ontario, and oh boy, 30 degrees for the high, that risk of some showers and thunderstorms, but the humidex getting closer towards 40, and a look towards the GTA where we're looking at tonight, as I mentioned, lows around that 18 degrees for Toronto, but 17 to 19 being the range. Hazy, hot, and humid are 3 H's coming into the picture for tomorrow afternoon, and checking out some of those temperatures and where we might go, getting closer towards 30 degrees, right? So after Thursday into Friday, that chance of showers, the temperature comes down a little bit. Saturday, though, kind of a mix of sun and cloud, 29, a slim chance for some showers, mostly sunny and slightly cooler. Sunday, 27, and at this point, Canada Day does look pretty good. Lots of sunshine there, Mike, and 28 for the high.
Thanks a lot, Colette.
You're welcome.
Can a visit to the art gallery stimulate the scientific mind? Well, one doctor thinks so. He brought his research team to the AGO. Why he says the trip is paying off. That's next. When you think of science, you don't necessarily think of art, but one scientist from Princess Margaret is trying to change that. He says visiting an art gallery with his team of researchers helps the scientists do their jobs. We caught up with Dr. Lupien and his team at the Art Gallery of Ontario.
It's kind of fun to have a group of adults who are getting really engaged and excited about the work. It's a nice change of pace.
We're, as researchers, are tasked to come up with knowledge that we don't have yet, to discover, to go beyond the boundaries of existing knowledge. And so in that line of thought, we have to be innovative, we have to be imaginative, we have to think differently. Based on the evidence that we have, be imaginative. Arts is exactly this. It's creativity, it's designing something that no one's designed before, coming up with a new perspective of life that's originating from your own biases, but it's still a good reflection of what you see as the reality of the world. There's this notion that we get to learn about each other's perspective of life, because when we come to the arts gallery, there's no a priori, there's no wrong, there's only right. Anything that someone tells me about the perception they have of a given piece is their interpretation of that piece, and there's no way for me to judge that. I can only absorb it and appreciate it. So I've been discovering more and more how my trainees, my lab members think, and that's been fabulous. There's also the concept of being mesmerized. Get excited about the pieces that we see. We leave this with a lot of motivation and excitement when we go back to the research lab.
I'm a computational biologist and I work on prostate cancer. Coming out of your comfort zone and thinking outside the box helps you a lot when you're doing research as well. So it's kind of telling you to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and look at the whole thing at the same time.
We often support lawyers and doctors because it's about having a common place that you can kind of come together and see work and then have a conversation. And I think that's the real power of art, that it can really incite and really create an opportunity for people to see the world differently and to have conversations with one another.
And we do this for ourselves because we see a benefit to it. I welcome everybody else to do the same. There's a lot to be learned from art, that's for sure. The key is always to look for that source of motivation, that source that will lead you to think beyond the boundaries of your daily activities.
A great team building exercise. Well, before we go, Nora Jones will be on cue tomorrow. She'll be talking with Tom Power about her life as an artist and her latest album, an eclectic collection of singles called Begin Again. You can hear that tomorrow at 10 a.m. on CBC Radio 1. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.